My name's Ramona, and I grew up in a corner of Columbus, Ohio, where the streets were lined with old oak trees and the hum of family life felt like it could carry you through anything. At least, that's what I thought when I was a kid, back when it was just me and my parents in a small house that smelled of motor oil and my dad's cooking. My mom was young when she had me, barely out of high school, with dreams bigger than the paycheck my dad brought home from his mechanic shop. She loved him once, I think, but love wasn't enough to keep her happy. By the time I was 6, she'd met Sebastian, a real estate guy with a flashy smile and a wallet to match. She packed us up, left my dad behind, and never looked back, except to cash his alimony checks. At first, Sebastian's world felt like stepping into a magazine. His house was all sleek furniture and big windows, the kind of place where you're afraid to touch anything. He'd slip me candies or let me spin in his fancy office chair, surrounded by glass awards and polished desks. But my mom? She changed. Around Sebastian, she was all sparkly dresses and fake laughs, like she was auditioning for a life she thought she deserved. I was just a kid, but I could feel her eyes on me, sharp and judging, like I was a smudge on her perfect picture. One evening, I was curled up on the couch, half watching cartoons, when I caught her voice from the kitchen, low and biting. "She's too much like her dad," she said to Sebastian. "Always poking around, asking questions, looking at me like I'm doing something wrong." Her words stung, like a paper cut you don't see coming. I didn't know what I'd done, but it felt like being me was the problem. My dad was the opposite. He lived across town in a cramped apartment that smelled like grease and old vinyl records. Weekends with him were my escape, cheap burgers at the diner, swinging at the park, or just sprawled on his couch, sketching while he hummed along to Springsteen. "You're a star, Ramona," he'd say, ruffling my hair when I showed him my drawings. "Don't let anybody tell you different." Those moments kept me going, especially when things at home got heavier. My mom's criticism sharpened over time. "Can't you do anything right?" She'd snap if I spilled juice or left my homework on the table. She'd hold up pictures of her friends' kids, perfectly dressed, perfectly poised, and sigh. "Why can't you be more like them?" I'd bite my lip, trying to shrink into myself, but one day, I couldn't take it anymore. After she yelled at me for tracking mud into the hallway, I muttered, "Dad wouldn't care about a little dirt." Her hand flew faster than I could blink, the sting blooming across my cheek. "Don't you dare talk about him," she hissed, her face inches from mine, her breath sharp with coffee. I blinked back tears, promising myself she'd never see me cry. When my mom got pregnant with my half-sister, Sky, the air in the house shifted. She glowed, the way people do when they're expecting, but that light never reached me. "This is it, Sebastian," she'd say, rubbing her belly while he grinned like he'd won the lottery. Our perfect family. I felt like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. Then came the bombshell. They needed my room for the baby. "It's only fair, Ramona," my mom said, her voice clipped, like it was already decided. "You can move to the smaller room." Smaller room? It was barely a closet, with a single window and walls that felt like they were closing in. I packed up my sketches, my books, everything that made me feel like me, and moved. It was like they were erasing me bit by bit. Sky was born, and she was everything they'd hoped for. Big eyes, tiny curls, a giggle that could melt anyone. I loved her instantly, wanted to be the best big sister. One afternoon, while my mom was distracted, I crept into Sky's room, peering into her crib. "Hey, little one," I whispered, reaching for her tiny hand. She cooed, grabbing my finger, and for a second, I felt like we could be a team. Then my mom's voice cut through like a blade. "What are you doing, Ramona?" "I told you to ask." Her eyes were fire, like I'd crossed some sacred line. "I just wanted to see her," I said, my voice shaking. She didn't answer, just pointed to the door. That night, lying in my tiny room, I felt the distance between us grow, a gap I didn't know how to bridge. Living with my mom and Sebastian was like walking on eggshells, always waiting for the next criticism or cold glance. By the time I hit high school, I felt like a stranger in their house, tiptoeing around Sky's toys and my mom's expectations. Then one evening over dinner, Just me and her, a rare moment without Sebastian or Sky's giggles filling the air. She dropped the bomb. "Ramona, we need to talk," she said, pushing her peas around her plate, like she was avoiding my eyes. Her voice was flat, like she was reading a script. "We've decided it's best if you move in with your dad. With Sky and the house, it's complicated." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Move in with Dad? But what about school? My friends? My heart was pounding, but she just sighed, like I was making it harder than it needed to be. "You'll go to a new school, make new friends. It's better this way. We don't have the space or the money to keep things as they are." I wanted to scream, to ask how I was the problem when they'd chosen this big, fancy life. But her face said it all. This wasn't up for debate. The next few weeks were a haze. I packed my life into boxes, my sketch pads, my favorite hoodie, the little clay bird my dad made me when I was 5. Sebastian barely looked at me when I left, just muttered something about calling if I needed anything. Sky, too young to get it, waved at me with a confused smile. My mom didn't even hug me goodbye. When I got to my dad's apartment across town, he was waiting at the door, arms open, his smile warm but worried. His place was small, cluttered with tools and old records, nothing like the polished house I'd left. My new room had peeling paint and a view of a brick wall, but it was mine, and Dad was trying. "We'll make it home, Ramona," he said, squeezing my shoulder. I nodded, but inside, I felt like I'd been thrown away. Starting at a new school was brutal. The hallways were a maze of unfamiliar faces, kids whispering as I passed. "That's the new girl," I'd hear, like I was some exhibit. I kept my head down, doodling in my notebooks, trying to blend into the background. At home, Dad noticed the weight I carried. "How's school?" he asked one evening, his voice gentle over our spaghetti dinner. "Fine," I mumbled, pushing my food around. He didn't push, just said, "If it gets tough, you tell me, okay? We're a team." His words were a lifeline, but the loneliness was heavy, like a backpack I couldn't take off. I missed my old friends, my old routine, but more than that, I missed feeling wanted. One morning, staring at the cracked ceiling of my room, I made a decision. If no one else was going to fight for me, I'd fight for myself. "No one's handing me anything," I muttered, sitting up. Over breakfast, Dad noticed the shift. "You look like you've got a plan, kiddo," he said, raising an eyebrow over his coffee. "I'm going for the big scholarship," I told him, the words spilling out before I could second-guess them. "The one for top students. I want to make something of myself, Dad. I don't want to be stuck." His smile was like sunlight breaking through clouds. "That's my girl. Whatever you need, I'm here." School became my battlefield. I stayed up late, my desk littered with textbooks and coffee mugs, chasing perfect grades. My math teacher, Mr. Carter, noticed. "You're putting in the work, Ramona," he said after class one day, leaning against his desk. "What's driving you?" I zipped up my backpack, meeting his eyes. "I need that scholarship. I've got plans, and they don't include staying here forever." He nodded, like he got it. "Keep it up. I'm rooting for you." I even found a couple of friends, Jasper and Lila, kids who didn't care about popularity, but knew how to make me laugh. "You're like a study superhero," Jasper teased at lunch, tossing a fry at me. Lila grinned. "Seriously, Ramona, it's badass how hard you're going for this." Their words kept me grounded, made the long nights feel worth it. The scholarship letter arrived on a rainy afternoon, tucked in a plain white envelope that felt heavier than it should. I stood in Dad's tiny kitchen, hands trembling as I tore it open. Dad leaned against the counter, trying to look casual, but I could see him holding his breath. My eyes scanned the page, and then it hit me. I'd done it. "I got it, Dad," I shouted, waving the letter like a flag. He whooped, pulling me into a bear hug, both of us laughing like kids. "I knew you could, Ramona," he said, his voice thick with pride. That moment felt like a door swinging open, a future I could actually touch. College was waiting, and for the first time, I felt like I was running towards something, not away. College was a whirlwind, late-night study sessions, art classes that lit me up, and a chance to rebuild myself. I graduated with honors, landed a job as a graphic designer at a small firm in Columbus, and started carving out a life that felt like mine. Then I met Grayson at an art gallery downtown. He was a designer too, with a quiet laugh and a knack for seeing the world the way I did, through colors, shapes, and stories. We clicked fast, spending evenings sketching together or grabbing coffee at hole-in-the-wall spots. He'd grown up in a tight-knit family, the kind that actually ate dinner together, and his steadiness made me feel safe, like I could finally let my guard down. A few years into my career, I was settled, good job, great guy, a little apartment with plants I actually kept alive. Then my mom called out of nowhere, her voice cutting through the years of silence, like a knife. "Ramona, your sister Sky's starting college in Columbus," she said, no warmth, just business. "We've paid her tuition, and she needs a place to stay. With you." My stomach twisted, memories of her coldness flooding back. But Sky was my sister, and part of me hoped we could start fresh. "Okay," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'll help her out." Sky arrived with a suitcase full of designer clothes and expectations to match. She was stunning, all confidence and charm, but her vibe screamed entitlement. "Can you stock almond milk and kale?" she asked that first night, checking her reflection in my living room mirror. "I'm on a diet." I nodded, trying to be welcoming, but living with her was like inviting a storm into my home. She'd stumble in at dawn, heels clicking, laughter loud enough to wake the neighbors. I'd lie awake, stressing about work deadlines while her carefree energy filled the apartment. Grayson noticed it too. One evening, while Sky was primping for another night out, she flashed him a smile that lingered too long, her eyes sparkling with something more than friendliness. After she left, Grayson sat me down. "Ramona, I think Sky's getting the wrong idea," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "She's been flirty." My face burned, anger mixing with embarrassment. "Thanks for telling me," I said, squeezing his hand. I confronted Sky the next day, keeping my voice steady. "Sky, Grayson's my fiancé. You need to respect that." She laughed, tossing her hair. "Relax, Ramona. I'm just being nice. Besides, can I help it if he notices me?" Her words were a slap, echoing the way Mom always made me feel less than. I'd had enough. "This isn't working," I told her, my voice firm. "You need to find somewhere else to live." Her face hardened, and she stormed out, slamming the door. An hour later, my phone rang, Mom, her voice icy. "You're so jealous, Ramona. You can't stand Sky being happy, can you?" I gripped the phone, my heart racing. "I just want respect, Mom. That's it." She didn't listen, just hung up, leaving me with the familiar sting of her dismissal. Life settled back into a rhythm after Sky left. I threw myself into work, designing logos that made clients light up, and into my life with Grayson, planning our future over late-night talks and takeout. Then I heard through a mutual friend that Sky was getting married, some big-shot entrepreneur she'd met at a party. The wedding was the talk of the town, all glitz and glamour, with A-list performers and a venue that screamed money. I swallowed my pride and called Mom to congratulate her. "Hey, I heard about Sky's wedding," I said, keeping my tone light. "Just wanted to say congrats." Her voice came back cold, like I was a stranger. "Don't bother, Ramona. It's for high society, not people like you. Stay away." The words cut deep, but I'd heard worse from her. I hung up, my hands shaking, but I wasn't going to let her ruin my peace. A few months later, Grayson proposed under a string of fairy lights at our favorite park, his eyes nervous, but full of love. I said yes before he even finished asking, and we started planning a wedding that was ours, simple, heartfelt, with the people who mattered most. I called Dad first, and his voice cracked with joy. "I'm walking you down that aisle, Ramona. Wouldn't miss it for anything," he said. I took a deep breath and tried Mom one last time, hoping maybe, just maybe, she'd show up. "Mom, I'm getting married," I said when she picked up. "I'd love for you to come." Her reply was like ice water. "A little backyard party for nobodies? No thanks, Ramona. I'm busy." I swallowed the hurt, said goodbye, and knew that was the last time I'd reach out. Our wedding day was everything I dreamed of. The venue was a small community center, decorated with wildflowers and string lights we'd hung ourselves. Dad walked me down the aisle, his arm steady, his smile prouder than I'd ever seen. Grayson looked at me like I was the only person in the world, and our friends filled the room with laughter and love. We danced to a playlist we'd made together, and every toast felt like a hug. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. Nothing like the cold spectacle of Sky's wedding, or so I'd heard. That night, as Grayson and I swayed to our last song, I felt whole, like I'd finally built a family that chose me. Grayson and I were riding high after the wedding, settling into our little Columbus apartment and getting ready for our next big adventure. A baby on the way. We spent evenings painting the nursery soft yellow, laughing as we fumbled with crib instructions. One ordinary afternoon, my phone buzzed, and I froze when I saw Mom's number. "Ramona, we need your help," she said, no greeting, just panic. Sebastian's business tanked. We mortgaged the house for Sky's wedding, and now it's gone. Sky's marriage fell apart. Her husband threw her out for cheating, and he's suing her. "We're coming to stay with you." Her words were a demand, not a request, and I felt my chest tighten. "Mom, you can't just decide that," I said, gripping the phone. "You owe us, Ramona," she snapped. "After everything we've done." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because her nerve was unreal. "Oh, you? You pushed me out when I was a kid, chose Sky and Sebastian's perfect life over me. Now you want my home." Her voice turned venomous. "You're selfish, Ramona. I'll take you to court if I have to." I shook my head, almost smiling at her desperation. "Good luck with that, Mom. You gave up custody when you sent me to Dad. What's your case? That I won't let you live off me after you threw me away." Silence hung heavy, then she hissed, "This isn't over," and hung up. I stood there, heart pounding, but I felt free, like I'd finally cut the last tie holding me back. Life moved forward, brighter than ever. Grayson and I kept working on the nursery, folding tiny onesies and dreaming about our kid. One morning, there was a knock at the door. I waddled over, expecting a delivery, but there was Dad, grinning ear to ear with a stuffed elephant in his hands. "Surprise," he said, pulling me into a hug. "Had to see my favorite daughter and bring something for the little one." I laughed, tears prickling my eyes as I hugged him back. We spent the day together, him cracking jokes about diaper disasters while Grayson and I shared our hopes for the future. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in pinks and oranges, we sat on our porch, the air soft with summer. Grayson's arm was around me, Dad sipping coffee, and I felt it, a deep, unshakable peace. "We've got this," I said, looking at them both. "No matter what, we're going to be okay." To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through rejection, heartbreak, and the fight to find my place. If my story hit you in the heart, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every choice we make, every boundary we set, is a step toward building a life that's truly ours. Keep chasing your own truth, and I'll see you at the table.